Hey guys, it's towniesimbuilds here, and welcome back to another episode of Sims 4 Real Lore. In this series, we dive into fascinating destinations from around the world, shrouded in history, mystery, and oftentimes quite a bit of spookiness. Today's episode explores one of China's most haunted locations, an abandoned, century-old mansion known as Chaonei No. 81. From the death of a distraught mistress, to eerie warnings and disappearing construction workers, the Chaonei mansion has been a site of both fear and intrigue, with a brief history overtaken by alleged ghostly activity. Before diving into today's episode, I do want to note that this video will cover topics regarding the supernatural and paranormal, as well as some unsettling causes of death, so please keep that in mind while watching. On another note, I am not versed in Chinese, however I will do my best to pronounce these different names for you guys. Examining the mansion itself, Chaonei No. 81 is an abandoned house located in Beijing, China, situated in the Chaoyangmen district. Constructed in the year 1910, the mansion was a distinctive building, differing from the more traditional Chinese structures seen within the city at this time. Instead, the three-story mansion was built in a French Baroque style, featuring brick walls, stone paneling along its windows, friezes, several dormers, and also stone balconies. Apart from the mansion, a larger building also exists to its left, which also carries several similar architectural qualities. However, the exact function of the secondary building is uncertain. Based on photographs from urban explorers, the secondary building is largely empty, with the exterior being slightly less ornate from the mansion itself, featuring a duller sandy brick, a tall tower at the front, and several glassless windows. The reason for the Chaonei mansion's heavy European influences is tied to its interesting yet convoluted history. In the early 20th century, China was continuing to feel the impact of British imperialism, with roots dating back roughly to the mid-1700s. In efforts to obtain high-demand Chinese exports, such as tea and silk, the British needed a high-demand good to trade with China. Unfortunately, this took the form of opium exports that the British obtained from their occupation in India. While this exchange proved profitable, the negative health effects of opium on Chinese citizens soon led the Qing government to ban opium sales, with strict trade restrictions imposed in the 1830s. In turn, this also called for the disposal of all opium supplies. These restrictions did not resonate well with the British, resulting in many British merchants who smuggled opium into Chinese territory. Most importantly, however, this trade conflict between China and Great Britain would eventually lead to the Opium Wars, occurring in 1839 to 1842, as well as from 1856 to 1860. With British forces aided by French allies, China would suffer major military and economic defeats. This resulted in the forming of new trade policies that would benefit Great Britain, along with other countries including France, Russia, and the United States, who also sought to benefit from economic possibilities in China. Among these agreements, China would now permit British residency within its territory, while also opening several additional trade ports, limiting tariffs, allowing foreign ships to sail and trade along the Yangtze River, and, most notably, granting Great Britain ownership of the formerly Chinese-owned Hong Kong. France, Russia, and the United States would benefit from several of these same new agreements as well. Circling back to the Chaonei mansion, it is very likely that the mansion's design and original purpose stemmed from the influences of European traders. In fact, some sources say that the mansion was constructed for British residents living in Beijing, originally built at the request of the current ruling Qing family. This could possibly stem from a diplomatic offering, but unfortunately there is no information on the original occupants of the mansion or the Qing family members that contracted its construction. Alternatively, some sources claim that the mansion was the estate of a French railway manager, who allegedly constructed a railroad connecting Beijing to the city of Hankou. Known as the Beijing-Hankou Railway, this theory does align historically. The railway was constructed from 1897 to 1906, reportedly built by a Belgian company with assistance from a French financial institution. Furthermore, the building's architectural influences carry many qualities of a traditional chateau. However, there are still no specific names or dates tied to this claim. Other sources theorize that the mansion was instead intended to be a Catholic church. This theory is so commonly accepted that Chaonei No. 81 is often referred to as Chaonei Church. Branching from this theory, some sources claim that this building may have been a religious institution, which taught the Chinese language to Western missionaries in Beijing. The building's later usage could furthermore support this claim. Despite these interesting theories, the true original backstory of the Chaonei Mansion is in fact a mystery. A lack of historical records, along with many contradicting local legends, makes its history even more difficult to trace. The economic conflicts and entry of Western countries are the only clues to the mansion's initial purpose. Regardless of its true origins, the Chaonei Mansion is tied to a tragic legend that is known by many locals. Based on the legend, a high-ranking Chinese government official once resided in the mansion itself, inhabiting the estate roughly in the 1940s. The official was said to be a member of the Kuomintang, or the Nationalist Party of China, which ruled the Chinese nation from 1928 to 1949. Within the mansion, the official allegedly lived with a lover, a woman that some describe as a wife, but more commonly as a mistress or concubine. The couple seemingly did not have any children, nor is there any mention of other individuals living within the mansion. However, in the year 1949, things take a dark turn for the couple. At this time, a rivaling political party, also known as the Chinese Communist Party, grew increasingly powerful. The Communists sought to take China in a new direction, amidst several economic and political struggles. Within decades, the clash of the nationalist and communist parties led to the Second Chinese Civil War, eventually culminating in the defeat of the Kuomintang, or the Nationalist Party of China. Several Kuomintang officials were forced to retreat to Taiwan, including the alleged owner of the Chaonei Mansion. However, in a very strange twist, his mistress was left behind in the estate, alone and awaiting her lover's return. The Kuomintang official never returned to Beijing for his mistress, however. Based on the legend, the mistress became distraught and could no longer bear living alone within the mansion. Unfortunately, she ultimately decided to forfeit her life. Based on local legend, it is said that she died in the rafters of the mansion, making the mansion's attic her final place of death. According to some sources, the year of the mistress's death occurred in 1949, which does remain consistent historically with the defeat of the Kuomintang and the rise of Chinese communism. If this legend is true, many believe that her spirit has remained within the mansion for several decades, oftentimes making her presence known. While this legend is the most popular story surrounding the property, it unfortunately lacks credibility. There are no verified dates, names, or reports surrounding either the Kuomintang official or the identity of his deceased mistress. Regardless, the legend of the Chaonei Mansion has stirred much superstition and apprehension with Chinese locals. These sentiments are verified by longtime Beijing resident 𝗧𝗛𝗓𝗓𝗓, who shared his perspectives on the Chaonei Mansion in an interview with the New York Times. 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓 states, "Even in the 1970s, people thought the house was haunted. As children, we would play hide and seek in the house, but we didn't dare come in by ourselves." These superstitions are traced farther back to the 1960s, when the Chaonei Mansion would continue to experience a constant flux of both new owners and purposes. Since the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, records indicate that the Chaonei Mansion was used by the Chinese government, often used as office space for various government organizations. At some point, however, the Chaonei Mansion would be occupied by the Red Guards, members of a revolutionary group led by Mao Zedong, a highly prominent communist leader in modern Chinese history. Taking up residence in the mansion, locals did report an eerie occurrence, however. Just days after moving into the estate, the Red Guards quickly departed from the Chaonei Mansion, claiming that they were frightened by something within the property. Despite many sources mentioning this event in the 1960s, the details regarding the occurrence remain a mystery. It is unclear what the Red Guards experienced in their brief time in the Chaonei Mansion. Whether or not they witnessed the ghost of the dead mistress is uncertain. Likewise, any other signs of paranormal activity that could have frightened the soldiers are also not verified. Apart from these mysteries, the Chaonei Mansion has more bizarre and concerning rumors regarding several disappearances. These disappearances date farther back to the mansion's construction in the year 1910. With roots to the area's history, some local legends claim that a British priest had been involved in the construction of the estate, which was originally intended to be a church. However, during the early stages of development, the priest allegedly went missing. Despite the already unsettling circumstances surrounding the event, things took an even eerier twist. Local authorities examining the Chaonei Mansion construction site discovered a secret passageway under the property. Following the tunnels, the passageway reportedly led to the Disappearances district of Beijing. While there is limited information on this part of Beijing, this district was reportedly an industrial area containing several military factories. The connections to the Chaonei Mansion are murky at best, with possible links to its usage by the Chinese government. However, this does not align chronologically with the mansion's documented usage, nor does it match any of the mansion's most commonly reported origin stories. Despite this very strange discovery, the British priest remains unaccounted for. Unfortunately, there is no information regarding the priest's identity, leaving this local legend largely up for debate. Supporting this theory, however, is an article written by author and traveler 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗏, who documented his 2015 urban exploration of the Chaonei Mansion. According to his account, Andy had actually located the tunnel connected to the Chaonei Mansion's basement. However, he does not provide any information on the tunnels themselves, apart from noting some decaying garbage within it. Apart from the missing priest and the discovery of the underground tunnel, more disappearances would allegedly occur decades later in 2001. Based on various retellings of the event, a group of 3 construction workers were busy on an adjacent property, renovating the basement on the lot. However, in an eerie twist of fate, the workers managed to locate a section of wall that was also shared by the basement of the Chaonei Mansion. Curious about the mansion and its mysteries, the construction workers decided to break through the wall, and, in doing so, made their way into the Chaonei Mansion basement. Unfortunately, much like the priest from decades prior, the 3 men reportedly vanished. They were nowhere to be found in the mansion or the adjacent property, nor were they accounted for elsewhere. Some versions of this account claim that the men experienced a bright apparition that flashed before them, just moments before their disappearances. Despite these chilling circumstances, this account is questionable, given that there are no verified names or specific dates tied to this event. Author 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗏 sheds further light onto this alleged account, stating that the local Dongshan Public Security Bureau had no records of this occurrence. Although many of the legends surrounding the Chaonei Mansion cannot be fully proven, several locals over the past decades believe the mansion to be haunted by 1 or more spirits. Neighboring residents, for example, claim to hear wailing coming from the mansion throughout the day. Eerily enough, the wailing is also said to intensify during thunderstorms. The concept of thunderstorms as a catalyst for spiritual activity has been under discussion by paranormal investigators for some time. Former police detective Murky, now director of the Pennsylvania Paranormal Association, further supports this theory. Key states, "There are lots of people who witness hauntings, who have homes that they claim are haunted, who will tell us that when you have something such as a thunderstorm, they do have an increase in activity. Scientifically, this theory could be explained by high ranges of electromagnetic activity occurring naturally throughout a thunderstorm. It is widely believed by paranormal experts that spirits can utilize electromagnetic energy in order to manifest. In the case of the Chaonei Mansion, this translates to louder, more frequent wailing by the potential spirit. Furthermore, these correlations also provide viable evidence supporting the claims of the locals. While the wails could potentially be from a trespasser or wild animal on the property, there are additional occurrences confirmed by locals that remain largely unexplained. Many individuals who have passed by the mansion have reported feeling a sense of dread come over them. During his visit to the Chaonei Mansion, author 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗏 shares an account from a local Chinese resident by the name of Zhang Sunyin. Reportedly, Zhang attended school on the same block as the mansion itself, and shared his sentiments about the estate. His words are as follows: "When I was at school, we used to walk past there every day. We all knew of the stories and tales about that place, and that they probably weren't true. However, most of the neighborhood, all the local people living around here and surrounding, know that a girl had died in there at some time. They all know. We all think that the house is a very bad place. We don't know why, we can just feel it." Zhang continued to verify the case of the missing construction workers in 2001, stating that the news had been a major topic of discussion among staff, students, and parents at his school. Based on his report, the case was also published in several Chinese newspapers. Apart from these strange occurrences, an alarming, unexplained anomaly remains at the Chaonei mansion. Reportedly, a mysterious cold spot looms over the main entrance of the mansion itself. Even in the hottest summer months in Beijing, the cold spot persists with no clear practical cause. Furthermore, other shaded entrances to the Chaonei mansion remain significantly warmer, despite bearing the same structural qualities. Examining the details of the Chaonei mansion legend, many theorize that this could be a sign of the dead mistress's spirit. The isolated cold spot, which is often an indicator of a spiritual presence in the paranormal community, may be a manifestation of her ghost, which now lingers at the front entrance awaiting her lover's return. The alleged wailing may also be an audible manifestation of her ghost, a reflection of her spirit's grief in relation to the loss of her lover and her own tragic death. All of these connections remain up for speculation, however. Unfortunately, there has not been any documented investigation of the Chaonei mansion regarding these alleged paranormal occurrences. Any audio recordings, photographs, video footage, or technical measurements regarding apparitions, cold spots, and the reported wailing are virtually non-existent. Furthermore, Chinese authorities with connections to the Chaonei mansion further deny any signs of paranormal activity, while also denouncing the credibility of all local legends and mysterious disappearances tied to the property itself. One individual by the name of 𝗧𝗛𝗡𝗚𝗏 thoroughly denies all rumors about the Chaonei mansion. With the mansion currently under the ownership of the Beijing Catholic Diocese, 𝗧𝗛𝗡𝗏 serves as a Secretary General of Beijing's Chinese Patriotic Catholic Association. Quoted in the New York Times regarding the property, 𝗛𝗏 states the following: "In terms of the history, there is no such thing as a Kuomintang official living there. The whole story about the house being haunted is complete nonsense." 𝗛𝗏 further elaborates on the history of the property, confirming an original construction date of 1910. Based on his account in the New York Times, he states that the property was originally constructed as an academic institution, named the North China Union Language School. The school would eventually serve as a Chinese language training facility for a variety of foreign missionaries, ambassadors, and businessmen. Eventually, the school would be renamed as the California College, although the reason for the name change and its significance is unclear. Even still, many local residents and researchers uphold the aforementioned origin stories of the Chaonei mansion, suggesting that the property was either a diplomatic offering to the British government or the home of a French railway manager in Beijing, given the mansion's architectural qualities. Additionally, these individuals continue to believe the local legends surrounding the property itself, and in doing so, also believe in the more ominous, supernatural aspects of the estate. The dark superstitions surrounding the Chaonei mansion have arguably played a large role in its derelict condition, which remained without occupancy for a period of about 30 years, according to some sources. Some sources state that potential buyers remained hesitant to purchase the property, in one part due to renovation and restoration costs, and the other reason being its murky history and alleged paranormal activity. Despite the Beijing Catholic Diocese obtaining rights to the property in the late 1990s, the Chaonei mansion serves as a place of debate for both supernatural believers and supernatural skeptics. Within the abandoned mansion, extensive instances of graffiti line the walls. Curiously, however, many of these markings offer contradictory statements to possible viewers. A vast majority of the graffiti markings allegedly advise visitors to leave, warning of ghosts inside. One interesting marking, however, argues otherwise. This image of a chalk message drawn on the mansion's exterior roughly states, "Please do not believe lies. There are no ghosts." Through time, the Chaonei mansion had stirred so much public intrigue that in 2014, a film was officially released in Chinese theaters. The film, directed by Raymond Yip and entitled The House That Never Dies, proceeded to be a box office success, becoming one of the highest-grossing Chinese films, according to some sources. Allegedly, the film was not set within the Chaonei mansion itself. However, historically accurate rooms and layouts were constructed in efforts to stay faithful to the true location. The film's plot is also heavily inspired by the mansion's many local legends. Despite the property's murky history, the mansion of Chaonei No. 81 still stands to this very day. In fact, Under the continued ownership of Beijing's Catholic Association, the mansion reportedly received a thorough renovation in 2017. This renovation brought new life to the overgrown exterior of the building and restored the formerly derelict interior. Unfortunately, it is unlikely that the mansion is open to the public, given that the estate had been previously listed for private rental. Although curious local residents and urban explorers can no longer walk the halls of the Chaonei Mansion, the estate will continue to be one of China's most infamous historical locations. Whether or not the hauntings and urban legends are true, however, will continue to remain a mystery. Alright guys, and that is a wrap on the many mysteries of Beijing's alleged haunted mansion, Chaonei No. 81. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the lore behind this location, and of course seeing the whole build come to life. Overall, I think I was able to get the exterior fairly close to the real life references, but unfortunately due to a lack of reliable photos for the inside, the interior is very much my own creation, and of course is not 100% historically accurate. As always, this is a no CC, no mod limited pack build, and will be available on the Sims 4 gallery for download. I'll leave you guys now with the final cinematic shots, along with the final lot specs as well. And, just like always, this has been 𝗪𝗛𝗓𝗏𝗡𝗚 signing off. Thank you so much for watching, guys.